USIP was asked to conduct a 3-day negotiation skills training for a group of civil society and government officials in Niamey, Niger. The workshop was requested by the Niger Commissioner of Peace, a man named Mohamed Anako. Anako, a Tuareg, had seen how some Tuaregs had signed a peace agreement with the government of Niger back in the mid-90s. But that peace agreement had not been implemented. The government cited insecurity as the reason for not building roads, schools, and hospitals it had committed to, while some Tuareg considered this a breach of the commitment and vowed to continue to fight. The president of Niger had unequivocally stated his refusal to reopen the peace talks. But Anako believed that a negotiation skills training workshop could be a vehicle to build relationships among key constituencies and influential actors, including members of civil society and parliament. The workshop was a great example of local ownership and effective communication. The commissioner selected a small committee of 6 people who put together the entire plan. They discussed a suitable venue for the workshop, they reviewed and edited the agenda, and they even discussed the type of food that would be served and at what time the meals would be served. They selected the participants, ensuring exactly the right actors would be involved. Everything was going smoothly in the workshop until the second day, when an unexpected wrinkle occurred. The participants were divided into small groups, working through a problem-solving framework. The exercise was intended to train in the tools of goal setting and selecting activities to achieve those goals. Each group selected their own problem to work on. One group, that included one of only 2 women in the workshop, had selected the topic of CEDAW as their problem for the exercise. The CEDAW is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Niger was one of the countries that had ratified but not signed the CEDAW Convention. As the group began delving into the topic, I started to hear voices rising from across the room. I observed the group from a distance and noticed that 2 members of the group seemed to be dominating the conversation. These 2 members were both key contributors to the workshop, but both had strong personalities. The man was quite an intimidating figure, tall and assertive. The woman, as I said, was one of only 2 women invited to participate. She was a young parliamentarian and a very impressive and self-assured speaker. I moved a little closer. I saw that the other members of the group were actually totally disengaged. I pulled up a chair on the outside of the circle. These 2 members were becoming increasingly vocal and loud. Their gestures and body language indicated that neither was really listening to the other. I asked the group if they minded if I asked a few questions. I think most of them were relieved. I asked each of the 2 who had been arguing what they understood about the other's perspectives or viewpoints. Their responses indicated to me that they were both grandstanding a bit, trying to make their points and trying to convince the other that he or she was wrong. After asking a few questions, I asked them to recall one of my mantras for effective communication: seek to understand before you try to persuade. I told them that I didn't think they understood each other's perspectives at all. I suggested we break up the group for a time so they could spend some effort truly listening to each other. A number of pairs sat down to gain better understanding, including the 2 who had been so vocal. As the workshop was winding down the next day, the man from the group came to find me and said that he wanted to tell me what had happened. The two members of the group were seated side by side. Their body language had completely changed. The tension between them was gone. The man revealed that he knew of the woman before this workshop. He believed she was one of a group of feminist women who wanted to change Niger and basically destroy the culture in the country. He felt like she was not a good Muslim. But, he said, when he listened to her, he realized that she was not like that at all. She was a feminist, yes, but she also was a Muslim who wanted to be a good Muslim. She thought it was possible to improve women's rights in Niger while still respecting their shared religion. Then she began to talk. She also knew of this man. He was a very powerful man in Niger, one of a group of very assertive Islamic men who had come together to send a letter to the president of Niger saying that he could not sign the CEDAW treaty because it was un-Islamic. But he also shared that he had a wife and a daughter, and that he wanted them to have opportunities. He wanted his daughter to be educated. In short, he wanted rights for women in Niger that were consistent with Islam. At the end, they told me that they realized they would not agree on everything, but they now understood the true power of listening for understanding. It allowed them to get to a place of shared understanding. What's critical to understand about active listening and this example is that the listening was critical for more than just understanding the issues. This example is not unusual in that listening helped to counter stereotypes, clarify misperceptions, and break down social barriers that may be entrenched, creating real cleavages in the society. Listening well is, at the end of the day, about relationships and trust. This was a transformative experience for all concerned. Even the president of Niger agreed to resume negotiations with the Tuareg within 6 months of this workshop.